Aloha, everyone. Welcome to Java. Thank you for joining me Sunday for this week of November 19th, 2023. So I'm happy to announce we've got the MMRI is working again. So we've got our favorite indicator. And as you can see, it did pull back quite a bit. We're now in the high territory, high risk instead of extreme. Off of last week, towards the end of the week, the yields fell as well as the dollar. That boosted stocks and lowered the risk. So everyone went into risk. The sentiment currently is cautious. So this is a major holiday week for the United States. There will be lower volume, and this means if you're a newer trader, that the moves will be more exaggerated. So a couple of things that you can expect from this is that perhaps your orders won't get filled because there's less people trading. And then also when there is move, it'll move faster. So keep a lookout for that. Remember to use your stops and your management. So as I said, this calendar is a holiday. It's Thanksgiving for the United States. It's a short week. And the good news that they're telling us is fuel prices have gone down. So have airfares, because it's typically quite a bit of travel. As a matter of fact, they're expecting that this is their highest travel week of the year and actually in 10 years. They're also saying that turkey and other food costs are also down. So should be easier to travel if you believe what they're saying. So looking at our week, it's going to be very light, and especially towards the end of the week. So Monday, we're getting some leading economic indicators. Tuesday's home sales. Wednesday, we're looking at jobless numbers and durable goods again. Thursday, markets are closed. New York Stock Exchange will not be trading. Friday will be a half day. They will trade only until 1 p.m. and then they will be closed. So in the morning, they're getting flash services PMI. So very light week going into December. So this is what we're calling the Santa Claus rally time. So back to reality. We've got these stories now, they're beginning to come out about early cracks starting to show in banks' commercial loans. We know this, we've been talking about this, but it's coming out more in stories. So it's beginning to cut through their narrative that everything is fine. With commercial loans going down, businesses are now having a difficult time surviving. So we're seeing more bankruptcies, commercial bankruptcies, businesses filing, less businesses starting because they can't get their capital. They're not able to make their loans to get their business started. And we've got even larger companies. So this is my example is Amazon. They're cutting several hundred jobs. So this one in particular is because of their Alexa voice assistance unit. They are moving to artificial intelligence to replace these people. But it's another move that they're doing to cut their services. They're also cutting on some of their delivery and some other issues. So, and they're not the only ones. We're watching several retail stores also closing stores as well as restaurants. So the real economy is going to start showing. And now several professionals analysts have moved up their guess for the recession that we're expecting to be early this coming year. So with this, I just want to bring out, there's also a story from Brazil talking about joining the world's top crude producers by the end of the decade. So we also know this. South America and Brazil, very rich in resources. And so the US is looking for different trade partners and trying to get in with Brazil. There's elections that they've got going on, and we're trying to put people in place that would be friendly to the US. So with this, another story backing the truth. Foreign buyers moving away from US debt. We already talked about this, but if you're new here, this is mostly regard to the treasuries. So treasury sales, which are the loans the United States has in order for paying for things such as funding the wars that they're getting into. And this is getting a little bit more intense because no one has purchased these treasuries, leaving it up to the Federal Reserve. Has to buy that debt, and that's how they keep the 10-year yield down. So I want to move on talking about China and then also Africa. And why we are talking about them is because they will affect the economies greatly moving forward. Number one, for the resources that they have, and number two, for the trade agreements. They're also a large resource for gold. Uh, Both South America and Africa have large, not just stores of gold, but also gold mines. So they have the potential for more. So we've got China exerting their form. They're talking about the debt crisis in Nigeria now that Nigeria has moved away from under the control of basically France and other Western nations. So, and very importantly, their wording, because the way China works is to issue debt, do free construction projects for the country, and then once they cannot pay the debt, they take back whatever it is that they have constructed, whether it's ports or infrastructure, and this leaves them open to the trade. So they're telling Nigeria right now that it will not create a debt crisis on the continent and not to worry about the loans right now, that they won't call them on a debt default. They say the collaboration between China and African countries will reduce the continent's poverty. So basically, they're going to tie in their resources. Now, on the other side, you've got the United States exerting their form of pressure. So, since they do still have the US dollar is still the reserve currency of the world, and this means in order to do any trade, they have to purchase dollars first. So, they're basically kind of squeezing them. They have no dollars, so their scarcity is pushing more of the African countries into crisis. So basically, that imbalance between the currencies, between their native currencies and the dollar. We've also got an issue as far as kind of putting a little control on them through food. And this is regarding rice in this particular story, but it goes to more of their grain crops. So with this, they're talking about how they are becoming the largest importers of food, rice, and where they're importing it from, either Brazil or South Korea. And they're also talking about Japan and Thailand experience a decrease in needing because of changes in their diets. So actually, I wanted to look more into exactly what they meant by this. Do they mean they're eating less because of the cost, or that they're actually changing their diets after hundreds of years, literally? We'll see what they mean by this. But part of this that is the small part of the story that is the truth. This last one, noting that the increase of them importing their grains is due to stronger demand than expected for rice import due to higher prices domestically and quality concerns. So the last two words, quality concerns. So back when they had, if you remember, there was a locust invasion. And when this locust invasion happened, the United Nations, in particular, and surrounding countries gave them chemicals to spray on their crops in order to fight the pestilence. And the chemicals that they gave them are banned in several other nations, highly poisonous. So once they found this out, they had already sprayed their crops with it. So a lot of local demand, when they found out, they don't want to eat their own crops. So too late now. Basically a loss for that, and they're kind of buffering that. So with that, I've got a couple of lava updates I would like to go over with you. This one I'm only going to touch on the story. So it's Chinese warship may have harmed Australian divers near Japan. So this is in Japanese waters, but the locations are very important. So what happened was they basically were using sonar, and while divers were in the water, it's a very powerful vibrational burst. And this fight really is over communications. And I know that may sound odd, but what is below the surface of the water, and also a large portion of what the South China Seas is over, is the subatlantic cable. And this is for direct communications. Now, the backup is satellite, but satellite can be intercepted much more easily. So for closed communications, they are basically trolling the waters and I'll get more into this in a different episode, but for the maintenance of these fiber optic cables that span between these countries and Japan, and then the South China Seas are two main areas where the United States ties in. So we'll get into more of that later, but there's much more than what it appears. So I wanted to leave on a positive note. This is basically El Salvador. They're talking about how they converted from the US dollar over to Bitcoins. They use actually both as currency. And they made 31% profit in the year from moving off of this. So my point is not so much Bitcoin, although I do like cryptocurrencies. The point I want to make here is they moved outside of the system. If they had stayed on the US dollar strictly, they would not have been able to do this. They have also been increasing their infrastructures, their dams, their sources of energy, and he has really cracked down on crime. And I've been there in person several times and seen the difference that he has made. So you see a high presence of their police force, but the crime has dropped tremendously. And this is also opening opportunities for business, and they're seeing a boom from this. So I just want to bring that up. If this basically third world status, high crime, can do this, then so can the Western world. So can the United States. It's still a possibility. It's not too far gone. So just want to bring this light to the end of the tunnel. With this, I wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me. And until I see you again, my friends, stay free.